This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor Jon Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
There's been a change. This just in. The 4% rule is now the 4.7% rule, says the man who invented it.
Oh, I stand corrected.
Let's dive in. Let's see what all this math is about, Jon Hicks. This is Jon Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital. I'm Heather Branch here with Jon, asking for his ideas on this conversation about our income, because a couple of things. One, the idea of creating income from our savings is hard math for a lot of people. So good news, you don't have to do it by yourself. J. Hagan Capital, they are here to help. RetirementSolutionShow.com is our website. We also have links posted in the show notes. But we also are exposed to a lot of people's opinions about how to do this math. And unfortunately, a lot of rules that we still use and apply today, Jon, are just out of date because, and this is going to sting. It hurts. It stings like vinegar coming out of my own mouth that when I say, rules from the 90s, that's 35 years ago, guys.
It really is.
The 90s is not last decade. The 90s is 35 years ago now. So we need to update our rules. William Benjamin created the 4% rule in the 1990s. If the market average is 9% and you take 4% each year in retirement, you'll never run out of money, according to this idea.
Right.
Am I right so far?
That's what he says.
Okay. In his new book, A Richer Retirement, he has revised this rule to now be 4.7%. And here is what he himself said on the Decoding Retirement podcast on Yahoo Finance.
The 4% rule or 4.7% rule is designed to be a worst case scenario. If you take out at that low rate and you don't meet those worst case situations, the money's just going to pile up during retirement. And probably later in retirement, you're going to have some regrets wondering whether you should have and could have spent more.
Did you hear what he just said? Does anybody else know that it was designed to be worst case scenario? It's like a fallback rule. It's not supposed to be the rule, Jon.
Right. I mean, but that's how a lot of, blanket advice works, right? So that's kind of why on this show, we try real hard to not give blanket advice. Most of the things we talk about, they're top of mind things that we all have questions about. Most of them really do require a little bit more of a planning or a skill set based on what you actually want to accomplish, right? So I was talking to a small business owner the other day, and they'd done a really good job building a company. In their mind, they had created about a $25 million company, right? And when you look at what their cash flow was and their assets and things like that, you could say, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe it is about $25 million worth of value. Here's the problem. It was unbelievably dependent on that owner, that 66-year-old owner. No one else had the same relationships as him. No one else could probably control those new contracts as well as him. And so if you took him out of the equation, unfortunately, it wasn't a $25 million business. It was probably around a $14 million business. Now, is that still a ton of money? Yes. Yeah, but that is a real big difference, right? Because when you take out one of the most attractive assets from that company, it's not as attractive anymore, right? So when it comes to blanket advice, because someone I just happened to ask him, hey, if you don't mind me asking, where did you come up with $25 million? I can see on paper, that could be the case. But when you look at how dependent your company is on you, and he didn't have any kids in the business, he didn't really have a number two guy that was also, the same quality level of him. He's just like, well, that's just what I heard. That's the thing about blanket advice. So the fact that we went through the process and he understands now, just because he's worth $14 million on paper right now, does that not mean we can get him well over $25 million over the next 5 to 6 years? No, we absolutely can. As a matter of fact, really smart exit planning can add 300 to 400% more to your value at the very tail end, 3 to 4 times. So if he's worth 14 million now, there's a good chance so he could potentially sell for 36 to 40 million if we do some things to maximize his value, right? But there's that whole concept of a blanket statement may or may not be the truth. So coming back to your point about the guy that says you can pull up now 4.7% a year from your investments. Now, he made 2 assumptions here that I have to kind of critique. Number one, he said that if we can earn 9%, all right, guys, let's just be real serious about that. A lot of people think, well, the market average is 10. Not always. And it doesn't always average 10. In the last 15 years, has the stock market averaged better than 10? Yes. What about the previous 10 years? Did it average more than 10? No. It only averaged around 7. Now, What does that mean? It means that if you had been pulling out 4.7%, even though the market averaged 7, you could still run out of money. Why? Because the second thing he didn't mention sequence of returns. So I'm going to break this down real quickly. So if you use what they call a linear assumption, which is what he's using, assuming you just get 9% every single year and you pull out 4.7, he says, well, this is a worst case scenario. Well, let's go back. If you had all this money and you started pulling money out 4.7% back in 2000, because that was the year that you were going to retire. Why? Because you made all that money during the beginning part of the .com, and you made all that money towards the end of the Clinton administration, 1999. You were sitting on top of a gold mine of equities, and that's when you decided to retire. So in 2000, if you started pulling out 4.7%, even if you averaged that 9, which it didn't average 9 over that period, but even if you did, there's a good chance that you ran out of money in only 11 years. Whoa, John. Whoa, buddy. Whoa. If you are only pulling out 4.7, but you earn more than that, you can't ever run out. It depends on what years you get bad returns. Just like the Fidelity study we've been talking about a lot recently, where if you have a loss in the first couple years of retirement, you are 6 times more likely to run out of money. Now, why does that happen? Well, if you had $1 million and you lose 30%, you don't have $1 million anymore. You've only got $700,000. And if you wanted to pull out 4.7, I'm going to round it up to 5 just for easier math. But if you wanted to pull out $50,000 to live off that year, you're not at 700 anymore either. You're at 650. So if you wanted to get back to even so you can pull out that $50,000 each year, guys, it's what they call dormy. Game over. We potentially can't do it before we run out of money, depending on how long we last. So the two major issues that I have is using a linear assumption, which means that you're expecting to get 9% every year. Well, the market doesn't work that way. As a matter of fact, last year the market was gangbusters, but this year it kind of stinks so far. We don't know how it's going to end up. But if someone ends up having a double-digit loss in 2025, my guess is it's going to be a little uncomfortable depending on what these tariffs and what China, what Russia, and what Ukraine end up doing down the road. So I would be very careful about 4.7. Now, if you have a diversified portfolio that is built to create income for one of your buckets of money, you can potentially take more than 4.7. As a matter of fact, you can pull potentially 6, 7, and hold on, maybe even up to 8% a year of an income stream from that bucket. But you have to understand you will probably see depletion, which means that big old bucket that you're starting off with, whatever the amount of money in there, you're probably going to be chiseling away at that, picking away at it a little bit at a time. Are you prepared for that mentally? Some people are, and some people aren't. It's one of those paradigms we have to shift. But 4.7, I think, if you're in all market-based investments, is number one, a little high. And number two, linear assumptions are unfortunately what get a lot of people really messed up when you start to pull money out. Distribution economics are not very friendly when we have negative market environments. We have to put those things into perspective.
Understanding how to utilize your assets to create income streams for your retirement. This is the foundation of the plans they create at J. Hagan Capital. They can create with and for you as well. RetirementSolutionsShow.com is where to start that conversation. We also have links posted in the show notes. John, I think that when it comes to blanket advice, there's a lot of quote unquote good blanket advice in a way of an idea starter.
Sure.
But you then as a consumer need to take the responsibility upon yourself to say, I heard this idea. It sounds pretty good. How does it apply to me? Because is a percentage pull plan ever applicable in any case scenario? Or is that not a good idea because of what you were saying, what can happen to the markets and the sequence of returns risk?
Yeah, I think there's, when people, latch onto an idea or they hear something for the first time, there is some kind of a catalyst. There's an intrigue. Like, hold on. John, how are they saving money? You mentioned the story the other day about this guy that saved over $400,000 over the course of retirement. How did you do that? Oh, yeah, let's talk about that. So he had most of his money in a tax-deferred IRA, and we showed him by doing bracket bumping and asset shifting that over the course of his retirement, we could literally save him $400,000. Now, would that situation work the exact same way if someone already had all of their money in taxable or Roth accounts? No, they've probably already done a really good job. That person may not be able to save $400,000. They may not be able to save more than 30 or 40 grand. Perfect case scenario, even if they had the same amount of assets. So when you're thinking about those things, that catalyst of intrigue, whoa, what did they just say? The question is that something that you want to explore more about? And of course, you can get on the Google machine. You can call our staff as well. ChatGPT is getting better at some of this stuff. Yeah. Grok is getting better at this stuff. Perplexity is getting better at this stuff. But I find that it is very wrong when you try to get precise. When you try to get precise, if you say, I have $1 million to Grok and say, I have $1 million and I have it in these accounts, what should I do? It'll get so close to getting a right answer, but it's not right because it doesn't either understand the taxable structure in your state or when you're going to define those incomes. It doesn't understand that longevity factor. We try it all the time. I'm always trying to find out, have they kind of fixed some of the bugs? They haven't yet. So when you want specific advice, make sure you're asking a suitable advisor, right? You probably don't want to ask a whole bunch of tax advice to your Edward Jones guy. There's no offense to Edward Jones guys. Most of those guys just don't practice tax. As a matter of fact, they have a little disclaimer at the bottom of the thing that says, hey, we do not practice tax or legal advice. See, when you deal with a fiduciary firm that does handle actual tax concerns because they have CPAs like us, or they have tax attorneys, or they actually have estate planning attorneys they work with exclusively, it's different. You can make sure that you put all those silos together. So whether it's our firm or anyone else's, you just want to make sure, are you getting the type of advice you're looking for? If you're a small business owner, you want to make sure that who you're talking to understand small business owners. I understand it because that's exactly what I am. We brought in our CPAs and our tax attorneys into our firm because I needed the information. I needed it for myself to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, setting things up correctly, creating a company that has value and scalable, right? And so many of us have done the same thing. We want to get proper advice. So the blanket advice, and especially this 4.7, I'd be careful. I'm afraid that if people use that, they could actually run out. So just make sure if you have your plan with your guy, make sure you understand what it's based on. If they say it's based on a 9, 10, 11, 12% rate of return on the market, I would be very cautious and maybe have them recast that with more realistic numbers of the 5, 6, 7, 8 range. Even 9 seems a little pricey given what's happening right now in the economies.
And if you are having a conversation with a financial advisor that is saying those higher percentage numbers and that has you worried, now is a great time to get a second opinion then. And this is what Jon and his team can offer you at J. Hagan Capital. RetirementSolutionShow.com is where to start the conversation about the questions you have when it comes to your future. If you're a small business owner and you're wondering about exit strategies, if you are a DIY investor or you have a financial advisor and you're wondering about some sort of blanket advice term that you heard and how it could apply to you, let's get to work helping you understand how it does apply to you, how it would apply to you, what effects it might have on your money and your future. Again, it's RetirementSolutionShow.com, or just click on the links we've got posted in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with Jon Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with Jon and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting RetirementSolutionRadio.com. Be sure to listen to Jon's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital, LLC, NPN number 1882794.